According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, 92.8% of officers in the United States military have at least a bachelor's degree. Most have more, higher education. Compared to the American population, which only 29% of Americans have a bachelor's degree. 93% of enlisted personnel have at least a high school diploma. Most have some college. Compared to, okay, so 93% U.S. military has high school diploma compared to 59% of the general population in America. I'm giving you this statistics, and I actually just had a look at an old video from a different channel I had. It's called Rob the Blue Collar Guy, and I just would just talk about anything and everything, kind of like what I do here, but here I relate it to the Catholic Church somehow, just like this video about Vietnam vets. I'll relate it in a minute, but I made that video in response to a liberal, anti-American school teacher, public school teacher, that was on audio, and I got it on my video. It's like a 3-minute video. I'll post it in the comments. Check it out. So this guy was basically saying military people are the dumbest people. They recruit the lowest IQ people. So I do what I always do with liberals. I hit with facts. they run from facts. They hate facts. So sometimes I feel like hitting them with a right cross, but you hit them with facts and it works a lot better. So there's more to the study to basically look it up, watch the video. It's like 3 minutes long. But basically, studies have shown the average military man or woman, when he leaves the military, is better off educationally and financially, mentally. They're just better off than the average person that didn't serve in the military. Now, with that being said, if the military is so squared away, if they produce such awesome men and women, how come there's such a large population of homeless Vietnam veterans? I'm going to tell you, and I promise you won't hear this anywhere else. I'm going to give you a little story. This man wrote this story about the time he went to Vietnam. It was in the height of the Vietnam War. And he's in there waiting to get shipped out to Fort Benning for basic training, and a sergeant walks in and says, "Does anybody here got college? Anybody here got a college degree?" So he raised his hand, and the sergeant's like, "Okay, come with me." And he brings him to a young private. He says, "Private Gupton, just take him through every process. Don't lose sight of this guy. This guy don't know how to read or write. You need to help him get through indoctrination to get him to boot camp, or basic training, as the Army calls it." And so he looked at the sergeant funny, and he's like, "How does he get in if you don't know how to read or write?" And the guy says, "He's one of McNaira's morons." The guy was still confused, the guy with the college degree, so he researched to find out what's he talking about, McNaira's morons. Well, what it was Democrat President Lyndon B. Johnson doing what Democrats do. Forgive me if this sounds a little vulgar, but it was a saying my father used to always say, and it's very appropriate for this. He used to say, "Don't pee on me and tell me it's raining." Lyndon Johnson came out and said, because of this war on poverty, we're going to do Project 100,000, where we're going to draft 100,000 uneligible men who cannot meet the basic requirements to get in the military. We're going to do we're going to recruit 100,000 a year. This will make their lives exponentially better. Their income level when they leave the military will be 5-10 times higher than it would be. We're here for you. So by the end of the war, I think it came out to about 354,000 of these Project 100,000. Now, in the case of Private Gupton, the man who wrote the story said, in boot camp and basic training, he had to tie his boots every day for the man. until another recruit had the patience to teach Private Gupton how to tie his own shoes. Now, when I tell the story to people, they automatically think, you know, the military recruiting from the inner city, the ghetto. Well, Private Gupton, like most of these Project 100,000, came from the Appalachian Mountains. They were poor, white hillbillies, rednecks, whatever you want to call them. They were mentally disabled. They were physically disabled, along with a lot of inner city kids from the ghetto. So it was a combination. And of course, Lyndon Baines Johnson didn't tell you why he was really doing it. And I'm going to tell you that right now. Why he was really doing it was because at the time, if you were a blue-collar kid, you graduated high school, got a job as a carpenter or plumber, got a job in a factory, you ended up getting drafted. But if you're a rich kid, upper middle class, upper class, your parents could get you in school because they weren't handing out school money like they are now. You had to have money to go to college back then. And so these guys would get deferments. Oh, they're in college, they can't go. And they would stay in college as long as it took to avoid going to war. But we needed 100,000 more men a year, according to the Secretary of Defense, McNamara. You know, McNamara the morons, that guy. According to him, he told the president, we need to sustain, you know, to do what you want me to do in this war, I need 100,000 more men. He said, there's 100,000 qualified men every year we can get, but they're getting college deferments. But instead of going after that, qualified guys, he started Project 100,000, McNamara's morons. Now, according to statistics, Project 100,000 men were 3 to 4 times more likely to die in battle or be disabled because they weren't qualified. Not only were they low IQ, but they were physically not, they didn't meet the requirements. They were too thin. A lot of them were so weak and thin, they couldn't even throw the hand grenade half the distance of the required amount to pass basic training. They would pass them through anyway. And then they put these guys right on the front lines. So you can imagine, already these people are mentally disabled, physically disabled. They go to war, see the horrors of war, and they come back. And they're not greeted with parades like the World War II vets. No, they're greeted by these college kids who didn't have to go to war, smoking their weed, yelling at these guys that they're baby killers, spitting on them, cursing at them. And then these same hippies, what do? They go into universities and become college professors. And then they become politicians, like in the case of Bill Clinton. I remember going to a pro-life rally in Washington, D.C., being so disgusted, saying, we got a draft dodger in the White House, and we got homeless vets right down the street in the gutter. You know, I used to say a joke back then. You know, Bill Clinton used to, you know, media loved him. He was a media darling. He'd go jogging and stop to get a McDonald's, and that was like a big joke. You know, and I said, yeah, he was jogging the other day, and somebody threw a beer at him. But don't worry about it. It was a draft. He dodged it. Ha, ha, ha. I mean, that's how you got to get him. You got to get him with humor. You can't let these guys get you angry, you know. But as Catholics, what do? What do we do as Catholics? You know, our church teaches us that every human being deserves to be treated with dignity. And we see in the Bible, you know, Jesus teaches us by command and by example. He commands us to love our neighbor as ourselves. The Bible says, be careful when you meet a stranger, because you never know when you're entertaining an angel. Always think about that. When you meet someone you never know, is it an angel? Is it a test from God? You know, someone once said, true character is what you do when no one else knows what you do. So what do? You know, Jesus also shows us by example how he loved the lowly and the downtrodden and those that were considered scumbags in his day. The tax collectors, the prostitutes. The only people he had harsh words for were the religious, the wealthy, religious, well-to-do Pharisees and Sadducees. He called them vipers, called them snakes and hypocrites. He called the sinner friend and child. So we're supposed to follow his example. We have a Pope who took on the name of St. Francis Assisi, who God said, repair my church to, who took on a vow of poverty because he knew blessed are the poor. Blessed are the poor in spirit. And Pope Francis, when he came in, there was a palace, a really fancy palace, where they could probably get $2,000 a night for one of those suites. You know, people visiting the Vatican. So the Vatican had this plan before he became Pope. They were going to rent out rooms and use the money to help the poor. But Pope Francis, knowing how bureaucracies and big government work, said, no. We're not going to help the poor indirectly from the profit we make. We're going to help the poor directly. We're going to give this palace to the poor. And it's known as the Palace of the Poor, the most beautiful palace in all of Europe. We let homeless people sleep, eat, live, bathe. We provide food, clothing, shelter. It's called the Palace of the Homeless. Great example. What do we do as individuals? You know, yesterday, this guy came up to me. I think he was homeless. He was in a wheelchair. He literally had one arm, one leg. I mean, he just looked pathetic, you know. And he was wearing a LA Lakers basketball jersey and an LA Lakers hat. So I knew he was a big Lakers fan. And I don't know if he was homeless because he said he was short like $136. I couldn't understand what he was saying he was short for. And I literally had no money. Otherwise, I'd give it to him. I literally had no cash on me. And so I said to him, I said, man, brother, I said, I'm really sorry. And he's like, no, that's okay. God bless you, man. I know you can only do what you can do. I said, no, I want to say it. I'm really sorry the Lakers suck so bad this year. And this guy busts out laughing. And then we start talking about the Lakers. And then he tells me he's really not a Lakers fan. He's a LeBron James fan. Wherever LeBron goes, that's the team he roots for. And I was saying, you know, I was telling him about Michael Jordan. And we had a great conversation about basketball for about 20 minutes. And we shook hands. And he's like, man, I like you. I said, I like you, man. And so I said, listen, I said, honestly, I would give you whatever I had. I really don't have any cash on me. But I got these drinks. They're really good for you. You know, not my Bang energy drinks, because Bang energy drinks are great, but I don't want you all loaded up on caffeine out here in the sun. I'll give you a Vooz. It's a natural hydration drink. You know, Gatorade was invented in 1965 when I was born, loaded with sugar, and they told you it was good for you, and actually sugar dehydrates you. Long story short, this Vooz has no sugar, artificial, nothing. Drink it, and he understood what I was saying. I was like having an intelligent conversation with this guy, so I gave him a few cans of Vooz, and I said, listen, I come back every week at this day and this time. See me next time, and maybe I can help you out more. And he's like, okay. So we can only do what we can do. But we are commanded to treat every human being with the dignity they deserve. The dignity as someone being made in the image and likeness of God himself. So maybe you can't help financially, but treat people with dignity and respect. Don't treat them like the Pharisees. Oh, don't touch me, you're dirty. Treat them like Jesus would. What would Jesus do? And as far as financially helping, you know, St. Paul tells us in either 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians, I forget which one, but he basically said, hey, listen, I'm coming on this and this day. When you guys meet on the first day of the week, which is Sunday, to my Seventh-day Adventists who missed that verse, when you guys meet on the first day of the week like you do, take an offering so I can bring back to the poor. He wasn't taking it to get himself a private jet. In fact, in that same letter, he told them he was homeless. St. Paul was homeless. Look it up. He said, but I want to take this money to the poor Jewish believers that I'll be going to see when I leave you. He said, just decide in your own heart what you can give. And I don't want you giving by compulsion. I don't want you to give because you're intimidated. God loves a cheerful giver. So that's how we're supposed to give, according to St. Paul. Cheerful. We decide. We're not under the law anymore. Like we got to give a certain percent. According to St. Paul, give what's in your heart, what you can do. Some can do a lot, some can do a little. But we can all give love and dignity. I mean, Jesus was clear. Love your neighbor as yourself. And remember, You never know when you're entertaining an angel. So God bless and stay Catholic.